Let's give a round of applause to Mike Brooks from the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department, Pipes and Drums. Good morning to our decorated guests and those with us here today to honor them. Thank you for joining us. My name is Diane Cunningham Redden, and I'm a trustee of the Hamilton County and Cincinnati Public Library. On behalf of the library board and staff, I'm pleased to welcome you all to the library's 66th annual Veterans Day commemoration. We are here this morning to pay special tribute to our veterans and to honor all members of the armed service. We now are going to have the Diamond Oaks JROTC present the colors.
Guard. Oh. Left. Face. Present. Arm.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order. Arm.
Please remain standing for the Star-Spangled Banner performed by the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra.
Present. Arm.
Please be seated. At this time, I would like to introduce several special guests who are joining us today. Please stand as you are introduced. First, I would like to introduce my fellow library trustee, Bob Hendon. Cincinnati City Council person, Ms. Alba. Video? Yeah. Okay, next we're going to receive a video.
As we gather today, the Cincinnati and Hamilton County Public Library takes a moment to express our sincere appreciation to all our veterans. Your sacrifices have made an incredible difference in the lives of so many. And I am so extra proud of my Purple Heart decorated father, Eugene Lovelace, for his service to our world. He's now deceased, but I know he was always proud, as I am, of his valor. We are honored to recognize your bravery, including veterans among our staff and customers. Thank you for all you've done to protect our country.
The Cincinnati and Hamilton County Public Library proudly honors veterans today and every day. We are especially grateful for the service of our staff and patrons who have served in the military. Your courage and sacrifice protect our freedoms, and we are thankful for your continued contributions to our community and country. Thank you for your service.
Hi, I'm Greg Olson. I'm the board chair for the Cincinnati-Hamilton County Library System. I just want to take a moment today to thank all the veterans who have served our country, those who, from our families and from within the library system, who have placed their lives in danger, courage, and brought freedom to our country for all of us, standing on the shoulders of the forefathers who came before us. Thank you.
Today, we honor the men and women who have served in our nation's armed forces. The Cincinnati and Hamilton County Public Library is proud to recognize the veterans among our staff and community. Your courage, sacrifice, and unwavering commitment to our country's safety will never be forgotten. Thank you for your service.
On this Veterans Day, the Cincinnati and Hamilton County Public Library proudly salutes our nation's veterans. Your service has paved the way for our freedom we enjoy today. We especially thank our library staff and patrons who have served. Your dedication and bravery inspire us all. We are forever grateful.
Today, the Cincinnati and Hamilton County Public Library honors the brave men and women who have served our country with dedication and courage. To all veterans, including our staff and community members, we say thank you. Your commitment to protecting our freedoms and values does not go unnoticed, and we are deeply grateful for your service.
And now I would like to introduce Paula Bremheger, the Eva Jane Remain Coombe, Director of the Cincinnati and Hamilton County Public Library. Paula?
Thank you, Diane. Thank you all for being here so very much. Each year, on the 11th day of the 11th month, at the 11th hour, we gather to honor and share the stories of our veterans, of their bravery, their strength in fighting for our freedom. The Cincinnati and Hamilton County Public Library has been honored to host these stories for generations, dating back to 1955, when the original downtown Main Library was dedicated as a memorial library to Hamilton County residents who were killed in World War I, World War II, and the Korean War. Echoing through these very halls where we are today are the voices of speakers from the past 65 years who have shared their experience of service and their intention to keep their history and our history alive through their stories. The library is committed to honoring Hamilton County residents who proudly serve their country. We do this in a variety of ways. We have the Catherine C. and Thomas E. Hunefeld Story Center collecting stories from veterans and sharing them with the Cincinnati-Hamilton County public today and preserving those stories for future generations. The Book of Homage is displayed today. It contains the names of nearly 3,000 veterans who have died defending our freedom from World War I to 2011. Copies are available to anyone who would like one after the program. Finally, we are the home to the USS Cincinnati exhibit, which features artifacts from the 5 military ships bearing our city's name. Just as the library is a home for books and materials, we are committed to being a home for stories passed down from veterans. We strive to build and protect the legacy of our Hamilton County veterans as they have protected us and our country. I also want to note that just a brief thank you to my own father, who is a Navy veteran, and I sometimes fail to thank him enough, so hopefully he'll hear this, or I'll give him a call later today to make sure that I remember to honor his service, both as my father and as a multi-year Navy vet. I would now like to turn things back over to Ms. Redden. Diane?
It is our great privilege today to honor our veterans who've protected our freedom by their duty, courage, and selfless service. There are over 35,000 veterans currently residing in Hamilton County. We would like to recognize those of you among us today who have given themselves in service to this country. Our veterans, active duty service members, guards, and reservists. Your sacrifices and those of your families have helped keep our country safe and free. At this time, I would like to invite all of those who are currently serving on active military duty to be recognized. We would like to recognize each branch of the United States military: the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Air Force, and the Coast Guard. The Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra will play the Armed Forces Melody, and we ask that you stand as you are able to be recognized as your service song is played. Thank you all. Since 2006, the Cincinnati and Hamilton County Public Library has partnered with the Library of Congress on the Veterans History Project, which is an oral history archive for veterans. In that time, we have conducted over 700 interviews of veterans who served in World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and the Cold War. If you are a veteran who wishes to share your story, please stop by our Story Center located on the second floor of this building. There is a table with staff there today who can provide details about the Veterans History Project. This veterans program is not possible without the assistance of volunteers. If you are interested in helping with the Veterans Military Project, especially as an interviewer, please check with the library staff on the second floor in the Story Center. Today, the Public Library would like to acknowledge the work of one of our volunteers, Ray Hughes. Ray, would you please stand up? The Cincinnati and Hamilton County Public Library recognizes the contribution of Raymond Hughes, U.S. Air Force veteran, who as a Vietnam History Project interviewer documented the stories of 172 veterans for the archives of the Library Story Center and the Library of Congress. We would like to thank Ray for his advisory role of military historian to the main library's reference staff, as well as his overwhelming selfless service to veterans. Ray, please come forward at this time and accept this plaque on recognition on behalf of the Hamilton County and Cincinnati Public Library. Now it's my great pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, Kelly Knox. Writer Joseph Campbell said, "A hero is someone who has given his or her life to something bigger than oneself," meaning someone willing to dedicate their life to a purpose that transcends their own self-interests. U.S. Army and Air Force veteran Kelly K. Knox, Ph.D., has dedicated her life and purpose to service. Knox served in Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and the Bosnian War. Even after active duty, Knox has continued to serve fellow veterans in addition to her country. Knox is nationally recognized for her expertise in effective treatment for post-traumatic stress disorder and educating the public about evidence-based treatment for mental health. She has served as commander of the Greater Cincinnati Women's Post 644 of the American Legion and has been on the advisory boards of the Joseph House for Homeless Veterans and Volunteers of America. Knox is a life member of the Disabled American Veterans, Paralyzed Veterans of America, and the Military Officers Association of America. She continues to use her emergency response skills as a mission pilot with the Civil Air Patrol. Knox represents the National Paralyzed Veterans Racing Team in paracycling events and actively promotes adaptive sports by volunteering with the National Multiple Sclerosis Society. This led to her to become the 2010 Bike MS Ambassador, and she has personally raised more than $10,000 for MS. Kelly Knox is a true hero who has given her life to something bigger than herself, and it's an honor to have her with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Kelly Knox.
Wow, thank you very much for that introduction. I love talking about veterans, and I love talking about women veterans in particular, and it's really my pleasure and my honor to be here today. Thank you for inviting me. I want to start my talk today a little bit differently than I normally do, though. I've heard about the Veterans History Project and the Story Center here, and so I want to tell you a story about a veteran that I've been researching, that I spent some time in New England this summer going around to the various places that still exist that are related to this veteran. Many of you will never have heard of Private Robert Shurtleff. of the Revolutionary War. But he was a real badass. Can I say badass? I'm a soldier after all. He was actually a direct descendant of some famous Mayflower people and early settlers in the United States, including Miles Standish, and Governor William Bradford, who was the first governor of Massachusetts. But Robert's family had fallen on some very, very hard times and had become dreadfully poor. He spent much of his childhood farmed out as an indentured servant, but he had managed to pick up a few skills like reading and writing and weaving. And those kinds of skills were unusual for young folks at the time who weren't wealthy enough to get an education. After gaining his independence at adulthood, he worked in a tavern by the village green in Middleborough, Massachusetts, where he saw the local militia practice their skills at drill, heard stories about the war, and listened to traveling luminaries like Benjamin Franklin. Like many young people even today, Robert decided that serving in the Army was his ticket out of poverty and into a world of adventure. So he enlisted and he marched off to war in the Continental Army. But Robert was no ordinary soldier. Because of his physical fitness and his skill with the Charleville musket, Robert was selected to serve in the Light Infantry Company of the 4th Massachusetts Regiment. Now, the Light Infantry was the equivalent of today's Special Forces, and its soldiers were drawn from among the very best line infantry troops. Light infantry soldiers were skirmishers, and they were typically deployed in a position between the armies so they could watch the enemy and provide intelligence and early warning to the rest of the regiment. Private Shurtleff fought with distinction in many skirmishes for almost 2 years. He was wounded twice, and he even dug a musket ball out of his own leg with his pocket knife. He was greatly admired by his superiors for both his skill as a soldier and for his exemplary personal conduct. He was eventually appointed as an aide to General John Patterson at West Point, with whom he maintained a warm relationship for the rest of his life. So, why am I telling you about Private Robert Shurtleff? What's so special about this soldier? Well, here's the rest of the story. Toward the end of the war, Robert was deployed to Philadelphia to help put down a rebellion by Continental soldiers who were upset because the Army was out of money and they weren't being paid. While he was there, Robert became very ill with a high fever that left him delirious, and he was put under the care of a civilian doctor. Guess what that doctor discovered? Private Robert Shurtleff was a woman, and her true identity was Deborah Sampson, and she had served with distinction for more than 2 years, disguised as a man. Even after she was discovered, she was so respected by her superiors that she was given an honorable discharge and later successfully fought for and earned a pension as a disabled veteran, the first woman in American history to do so. Paul Revere and John Hancock were among those who personally advocated for her. Deborah Sampson is now the official heroine of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, but she had a hard life. She was largely ostracized by her family and her community for her exploits, and was even excommunicated from the Baptist Church. In the 1780s, it was illegal for a woman to dress as a man or to even travel without a male chaperone. She could have been imprisoned or even tarred and feathered, a punishment of the time that people rarely survived. It's hard to know what motivated her to make the choices she did. Some theorize that she was transsexual, especially since she attempted for a time to continue to live as a man after she returned from the war and before she married and had children. That's entirely possible. We have trans people serving successfully and honorably in the military today. I think, though, that we need to be cautious about placing today's sensibilities and interpretations on historical figures, as they did not think about sexuality and gender the way we do today. It's just as easy for me to imagine that she was a highly intelligent but poor, lower-class woman who saw men living with a heck of a lot more independence and opportunity than she could ever have as a woman in the 18th century. And thus she decided that she would like to be independent and have adventures too. Also, we know from surviving writings that she was very patriotic, and she longed to serve the cause of American independence, and maybe her patriotism was reason enough. We'll never know. But what we do know is that many young women today choose to serve their country for some of those same reasons. Military service offers benefits like skills training, financial stability, money for a higher education, and opportunities for independence and adventure. But military service is not without its sacrifices. So what do we know about women serving today and their issues? Here's the bigger picture. Well, first of all, we're no longer tarred and feathered for having the audacity to serve our country. So that's progress, right? More than 15% of active duty military today are women. We have almost 2 million women veterans in the U.S., which is about 10% of all veterans. Women veterans who are here, I know some of you are, I can see some of my friends here. Will you stand and be recognized? Thank you. The largest group of women veterans today served in Iraq and Afghanistan, but only slightly more than half of those women are even enrolled in the VA for services. The average age of women veterans is 48, compared to 63 for men. This has implications for our need to provide services for women veterans' families and children. About 1 in 5 women seen by the VA respond yes when screened for military sexual trauma. The most common mental health complaints of women veterans are depression, anxiety, and PTSD. So the upshot is that women veterans are a different group with different needs than the traditional male veteran that our existing systems were designed to serve. So what's our history of serving our women veterans? Well, for starters, the U.S. Census did not count women veterans until 1980. Think about that for a minute. The year that I enlisted was the first year that the United States said, hey, you know what, we've got women that have served in the military. Maybe we need to figure out how many those are and what we need to serve them. In 1982, the General Accounting Office found several serious deficiencies. Women did not have equal access to benefits. Women in VA facilities did not receive complete exams. The VA did not provide gynecological care. Women were not informed of their benefits under the law. In a VA survey, 57% of women veterans did not even know that they were eligible for VA services. But things have improved since then. In 1992, Congress passed a mandate for the VA to provide gender-specific care, such as Pap tests and mammography. In 1994, the VA was given authority to provide counseling and treatment for sexual trauma incurred while on active duty. And in 2011, 19 years after the congressional mandate, the VA published important revisions to women veterans' health care, requiring services like comprehensive primary care specific to women gender-specific specialty care, sensitivity to gender-specific needs, safety, and dignity, designated full-time women's health program managers, and access to maternity care, which even still today is provided on a fee basis or a contract basis. This is all great news, but what are some of the barriers to care that women still face? Many women do not self-identify as veterans. Historically, people think of veterans as those who have seen combat, and we know lots of women have seen combat even if they weren't in combat roles. But the vast majority of veterans serve in support roles, so in support of those who are line troops or combat troops. And a lot of those veterans, and most especially the women veterans, do not view themselves as veterans. Women veterans are more likely to be primary caregivers of children. Women feel uncomfortable in male-dominated environments, especially for their mental health needs. And women veterans frequently still, even now, report disrespect in those environments. So despite the progress, women veterans continue to be put at risk by a system designed for and dominated by male veterans. And federal agencies and community service providers continue to struggle with their understanding that women are impacted by military service and deployment differently than are men. Many Americans focus on the care that is provided by the VA, but the truth is that the federal government cannot provide all the health care, education, employment, and housing support needed by women and their families. More local coordination and collaboration are needed to enhance the effectiveness of health care, social supports, and transition services for both men and women, especially in the areas of housing and employment. So to summarize, the number of women veterans is growing rapidly, and they're not receiving the gender-specific support they need for a successful transition. We cannot count on the same kind of support veterans have had in the past, when only 2% of the American population has ever worn the uniform. We must become active in the organizations that do support us, and we must be vocal and assertive about our needs to Congress. We served, and we deserve respect and support. And I hope all of you will join us in these efforts. Thank you.
Each year, our Hamilton County veterans are remembered here at the main library with memorial wreaths presented by local veteran organizations, as well as the Cincinnati and Hamilton County Public Library. Jeff Guerin will present our first wreath on behalf of the Cincinnati and Hamilton County Library. Jeff? Thank you. Lieutenant Bullock will place a wreath for the Cincinnati Fire Department. Our next wreath will be presented by the VA. Our next wreath will be presented by Peg Albert on behalf of Greater Cincinnati Women's American Legion Post 644. Chief Warrant Officer 3, Jeremiah Minor, will present a wreath on behalf of the Military Order of the Purple Heart, Chapter 3620. Our final wreath will be presented on behalf of the USS Hornet Breakfast Group. It will be presented by Ray Hughes. Thank you all for being with us this morning to represent your organizations. Please be seated. For more than 240 years, our brave fighting men and women have protected our freedoms with their duty, courage, and selfless service. The line of heroes continues unbroken to today. Currently, there are approximately 2 million active and reserve personnel serving in the U.S. Armed Forces. At this time, we will end today's program to pay our tribute and respects to those who laid down their lives and for those who suffered in the hope of peace for all. Here once again is the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra. This will bring our 66th Veterans Day commemoration to a close. Keepsake coasters that were made in our makerspace are available for anyone who would like one. Please join us on the second floor of this building at the Catherine C. and Thomas E. Hunefeld Story Center to view our Veterans History Display, artifacts from the USS Cincinnati, and to record your own veteran stories. Thank you for joining us. God bless you.